Hi. So today I want to talk about Macbeth. So before I started this channel, I read Macbeth and I read Hamlet. And I always liked Macbeth more, but I could never really explain my reason as to why. And I think looking back on it, the main reason was because it has a surprisingly healthy message about masculinity. At the beginning of the story, Macbeth is this traditional masculine hero similar to Achilles, where he is strong and he is courageous. Um, but at the beginning of the story, he tempted by his wife, Lady Macbeth. He doesn't know if he should kill the king for power or should let him live because he's a good king and it's the right thing to do. And he ends up killing the king because his wife goads him into saying that he's not a man if he doesn't do it. And that it's interesting to me. A woman who in the story essentially thinks that women are inferior to men because men will do the masculine thing, which is to attain power. And she hates femininity in the sense that she wants to get rid of it and only wants to have these masculine traits. Lady Macbeth to me is an obvious example of what people who don't know what masculinity truly is, and just exemplifies toxic masculinity traits. And she, as I said, she goads Macbeth into murdering the king. And ironically, in killing the king, Macbeth showed that he is not as masculine as he thinks himself to be. Because in killing the king, he just went along with what his wife told him to do, even though he didn't want to do it. If he was a truly masculine guy, like a masculine hero, he would have said no, that this is wrong, and to not bring this up again, because he's a good king, he has done nothing wrong to me, and that killing him and power is not worth killing him. But he killed him anyways for the sake of power and because his pride was hurt. And that's a very, in my opinion, unmasculine trait, is to do a harmful action because their pride is hurt. And unfortunately, a lot of people suffer from that. They hurt others because their pride was hurt and they can't take it on the chin. And later in the story, Macbeth he essentially becomes crazy, and he murders anybody who he deems as a threat. Very insecure. And he ends up killing Macduff, who was a nobleman in Scotland, his family, and he flees the country because of it. During his exile, he meets the former king's one of his sons, and his son says for Macduff to go along with him and to take power, and that the son does not know how to rule, and he wants to relinquish his claims and give it to him. Originally, Macduff goes along with the plan on killing Macbeth because Macbeth murdered his entire family. But he does not want to become king. And I think that's actually a very masculine thing to do. You don't want, even though it is in a very assertive position with power, at the end of the day, you know your place. And that it is not your place to just take power and to ruin your home country. And he only agrees to having the power when the son tells him that I literally can't rule, I will destroy the country otherwise. And then he steps up, which is, in my opinion, very masculine, and how Macbeth shows that he is a more masculine and mature person over Macbeth, and would eventually be a better ruler, or supposedly. Yeah, I mean, he chose righteousness at the very end, and I think that for a story that was made in 1606, it is a very positive message about masculinity and how masculinity can either be a harmful thing or a very positive thing, and that you need to know what true masculinity is, and you shouldn't follow people that don't know what masculinity is, and that you should know how to maintain those masculine traits for the betterment of your society. Especially because I've read this story 3 times. I read the story when I was in 10th grade, I had to read the story in 12th grade, and I read it afterwards. During my 10th grade and 12th grade years, you saw that, in my class anyways, that the men were far more engaged with it than the women. And I think the part is that the story does speak to men more than it does to women. And I think the story does a very, very surface level and poor job explaining femininity as opposed to masculinity. And I think in today's society we are suffering from a lack of good masculine role models and stuff to look up to. I mean, in my life, I have my father. I'd say he's a role model to me. But when Gen Z, my generation, we have our parents are more likely to be divorced than ever. I think the stat is like 50%, which is insane because you potentially have a lot of children, now adults, because my generation is like mostly adults now, where they never had those masculine role models. And it kind of shows with some people. You can see people, especially young men, who pick fights for no reason, and they have very low self-esteem, and it's very sad. And I think that if people had a good understanding of masculinity, where you don't need to prove that you're masculine, you just know that you are by setting a good example, then I feel like society would be much better. And on the same token, there are some people, especially some women that I've seen, that think that masculinity is just toxicity, which is untrue. Every man has a certain level of masculinity. Every single one. Yes, even the gay ones. Sorry, I had to throw that joke in there. But yeah, it's just, I think we do suffer from just a lack of people not understanding masculinity, and it kind of hurts society. And I think Macbeth, for as old as the story is, has a really good example of masculinity that a lot of stories don't really show. Yeah, I just wanted to show my love for Macbeth, and I hope you guys liked the video.